Welcome to MMA Tonight. I'll be covering the top headlines from today in MMA. Alright guys, so Dana White is coming out saying that Aldo vs. Edgar could be for a vacant 145-pound title. So the UFC is still trying to figure out what to do with Conor McGregor. The former UFC 200 main eventer lost his spot on the card Tuesday after ominously tweeting that he wanted to, quote, retire young, and according to UFC president Dana White, that's not all he may lose. Now, speaking with Fox Sports 1, White hinted that McGregor's days as the featherweight champion may be over. Conor needs to clear up this whole retirement thing and clear it up fast, he stated. Because if he's retired, then at UFC 200, Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar are fighting for the vacant title. Conor McGregor famously won the UFC featherweight title in 2015 by knocking out the long-reigning Aldo in 13 seconds at UFC 194. The sudden, shocking end to the fight capped what had already been an astoundingly fast rise to the top for McGregor and cemented him as one of the top draws in the sport. Controversy has swirled over the last few months, however, as Conor seemingly left the 145-pound division behind to chase the lightweight title. He was booked to face Rafael dos Anjos at UFC 196, who withdrew and was replaced by Nate Diaz. When Diaz vs. McGregor 2 was announced, the UFC gave the former champ Aldo and fellow title hopeful Frankie Edgar the opportunity to compete at UFC 200 for the interim featherweight championship. Now guys, with all that said, McGregor is gonna remain the featherweight champion for the foreseeable future, unless he's legitimately retiring. The UFC contract carries a number of unique clauses exclusive to champions that give the promotion greater control over the fighter. Stripping him of the title would functionally be the UFC giving up some of its hold over McGregor, something that it's been reluctant to do in the past. Either way, Aldo and Edgar will face off for a belt at UFC 200. How Conor factors into the discussion remains to be seen. Okay guys, so setting aside all the Conor McGregor drama, there is other news to talk about. So guys, if you're a loyal subscriber of mine and have seen all of my videos, you know that Jon Jones recently questioned Daniel Cormier's injury, but now DC's responded saying because Jones has pulled out of his fair share of bouts in the past, he shouldn't be the one to question him. Daniel Cormier took to Twitter on Monday to express his thoughts on Jones questioning his injury, noting a handful of occasions when Bones himself pulled out of a fight. So Daniel Cormier tweeted, "Okay, I'll explain over a number of tweets, lol. UFC 172 was supposed to be his rematch. Jon said no, give him Glover. UFC 151, we know how that played out. Our first fight, Jon got hurt. UFC 187, we know that one turned out. Jon isn't one to question me. Better?" Now, shortly after DC's injury was confirmed, Ovince St. Preux filled in for him on short notice and will fight Jones for the interim light heavyweight belt at UFC 197 live from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Vegas this Saturday, April 23rd. Cormier and the winner of Jones vs. OSP are expected to unify the two titles later this year. So UFC welterweight contender Rory MacDonald has one fight left on his current UFC contract and wants to prove his worth by putting on the best performance of his life. MacDonald hopes that by putting outstanding work in the match against Stephen Thompson, it will give him more leverage in negotiations for a contract renewal with the UFC. "Right now, I just have to fight this fight, and then I'm a free agent and see what happens," MacDonald said in an interview with MMA Junkie. Rory stated that when he started martial arts, he never went in with the intentions of just making a lot of money. Everything was based on achieving his goals in the sport and the different aspects of fighting. However, with having fought for the UFC title and sitting ranked at the top of the welterweight division, he admits his feelings have changed and feels now he should be able to provide more for his family. "Perfect scenarios is I have the best performance of my life against Steven, re-sign with the UFC with the numbers that I want, and fight for the title and win. And then I'm sitting pretty," Rory stated. So guys, do you think Rory MacDonald will be able to beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at UFC Fight Night 89 on June 18th? Alright guys, so Anthony Johnson doesn't agree with Jon Jones vs. Ovince St. Preux at UFC 197 being an interim title fight. So Anthony Johnson had the opportunity to fight former UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones in the headliner of UFC 197 this weekend for the 205-pound interim title when champ Daniel Cormier was forced out of the Jones rematch with an injury, but AJ declined the matchup. Rumble recently went through a dental procedure and claimed he hasn't been able to put in a mouthpiece since his last fight, a TKO win over Ryan Bader in January. When he received a call from UFC executives, rising contender Ovince St. Preux took the fight against Jones on short notice, the biggest fight of his career. And yes, the interim title is on the line. Now that's something that Johnson doesn't agree with at all. At a UFC on Fox 19 media scrum last weekend, this is what the top contender had to say about UFC dishing out yet another interim belt. I don't agree with it. I think they're giving away interim titles way too fast. I can see if the fighter is out for, Dana says the new rule is like, if you haven't fought in 6 months, they do an interim title. And I'm like, dude, give the guy a chance to actually recover. Give him at least a year. I think that's just crazy. At the end of the day, it's not the real title. You're still in second place. I don't want to fight for an interim title ever. I just think it's a fake belt. That's just what I think it is. If they feel like they have to have a champion because the champion is injured, then so be it. But I just think it's a fake belt. I don't think it's the real belt. Now guys, Cormier has been out of action since his first title defense over Alexander Gustafsson last October, meeting UFC president Dana White's apparent new rule of 6 months or more on the sidelines for UFC champions. It should be noted though that an official rule regarding injured champions and interim titles has not been put into effect at this time. UFC 197 takes place live from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas on April 23rd. Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment.